So today in 6.5, we're going to continue with complex and imaginary numbers, and we're going to be doing addition, subtraction, and multiplication, and then tomorrow we'll do division. Okay, so a complex number is written in the form a plus bi, and we kind of saw this yesterday when we were solving. A is what we consider the real part, so just a number. And then bi is the imaginary part. And what makes that imaginary is that it has the I attached to it. Okay, so we always write it in the form a plus bi. Okay, so we're going to start by adding and subtracting, and you cannot combine a real part with an imaginary part when you're adding and subtracting. So it's going to kind of be like when you're combining like terms, combine the real parts, combine the imaginary parts, and then you have your answer in the form a plus bi. So for example, in number 1, negative 2 plus 4i, and that's being added to 3 minus 11i. Again, it's like combining like terms. So combine the real parts, negative 2 plus 3. You're going to get 1. And then you're going to combine the imaginary parts, 4i plus negative 11i. You're going to get negative 7i. And you're in the form a plus bi. Not bad. All right, for number 2, same idea. 6 plus 4. And then my imaginary is negative 2 plus 7i. You're going to get 5i. Go ahead and see if you can get 3. Eight plus negative 8 gives you 0. And then negative 5i plus positive 5i gives you 0i, and that's just going to give you 0. You don't need to write 0i, you don't need to write 0. The final answer is just 0. Everything canceled out. Okay, now let's do subtraction. Same idea, but we're just using a minus sign in between. So 4 minus 5. 4 minus 5 is negative 1. And we're subtracting both. We have to subtract twice. So now we're going to do negative I minus 8i. So negative 1 minus 8 is negative 9i. Okay, again, 5 minus 3. And then 2i minus 7i, negative 5i. Go ahead and try 6. Now with 6, 2, you're doing a minus a negative. Remember when you do minus a negative, it becomes plus a positive. So 2 minus negative 3 really becomes 2 plus 3. So 5. And then I minus negative 6i. So minus that negative again becomes plus a positive. So 1 plus 6 gives me 7i. Be careful with those signs with the minuses. If you like to distribute the minus sign first, go ahead and do that. I just like subtracting. Okay, and if you watched my last video, we talked about what I equals. I equals the square root of negative 1. It allows us to take the square root of negative numbers. And I said if you squared both sides, then I squared would equal negative 1. We want to keep this in our pocket because we're about to multiply complex numbers. So we're going to get some I squareds, and we're going to replace those I squareds with a negative 1 and simplify. Okay, so you can multiply real and imaginary numbers. The two methods that you're going to use to do that when you're multiplying, you're either distributing, if there's only one set of parentheses, or you need to FOIL first, outers, inners, last. If there are two sets of parentheses, you're going to FOIL. Okay, so number one, there's only one set of parentheses. It's 2i times 3 minus 5i. I'm going to distribute this 2i to both parts. Now, you can multiply imaginaries to reals. So 2i times 3, 2 times 3 is 6, so 6i. And then 2i times negative 5i. Again, 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. I times I is I squared. Now remember, we want our answers to be in the form a plus bi. Right now it's in the form 6i minus 10i squared. We don't want it to look like that. This is where I want this I squared to come into play. Anytime you see I squared, you're going to replace I squared with negative 1 and then simplify. So let's rewrite this. 6i minus 10 times negative 1. What is multiplying by a negative 1 going to do? It's going to change the sign of the 10, the negative 10. So this is going to become positive 10. And then because we want it in the form a plus b, I'm going to put my real first and my imaginary last. 10 plus 6i. Let's do another one like that. We're going to distribute the negative 3i. So negative 3i times 5 is negative 15i. And then negative 3i times 9i, I'm going to get negative 27. And then I times I gives me that I squared again. I squared, remember, we want to replace with negative 1. Okay, so negative 15i minus 27, but instead of I squared equals negative 1. And all that does is it changes the sign of that negative 27. So I get negative 15i plus 27, and then reorder it so that your real is first, your imaginary is last. Okay, in number 3, we're just distributing a 5, not a 5i. So 5 times 3 is 15. 5 times 6i is 30i. This one doesn't produce an I squared, so you don't have to replace it with the negative 1, and it's in a plus bi, so you are finished. Okay, for 4 through 6, we have 2 sets of parentheses, so we're going to have to FOIL. So remember, that means you're doing 4 multiplications and then combining like terms. All right, so first we'll distribute the 5. 5 times 4, 20. 5 times negative 3i, negative 15i. Okay, now I'm going to distribute my negative 6i. Negative 6i times 4 is negative 24i. And then negative 6i times negative 3i is going to become positive 18i squared. All right, we're going to clean this up. 20 minus 39i plus 18i squared. That comes from combining like terms. Again, we want to get it down to a plus bi. So I squared is going to be replaced with negative 1. And that's going to make positive 18, negative 18. And on these, your last step is to combine those real parts. And I'll get 2 minus 39i. Okay, so a lot more steps, but nothing you can't handle. All right, go ahead and FOIL number 5. See how you do. I'll do it as you do it on your paper. All right, so go ahead and check and make sure you got 4 plus 19i. All right, last one. Again, you can try it and then check with my work. Okay, so in this one, once you FOILed it out, your middle terms, negative 4i and positive 4i, canceled out. So your imaginary number got canceled out. Remember that I squared becomes negative